Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Roberto Gelado. I am a senior lecturer at the School of Humanities and Communication Sciences at CEU San Pablo University in Madrid. And I am a researcher of the iVerifier Hub, funded by the European Commission through EDNO. Along with my colleague Maritza Navio Navarro, also a lecturer at CEU San Pablo University and part of the iVerifier conglomerate, we would like to present our chapter, The New Game of Politics, How Information Disorders Have Reshaped and Threatened Modern Democracies. We have structured our text around four main axes. First one that deals with the precedents of disinformation. A second one focusing on the new threats put forward by modern disinformation. And finally, before our conclusions, a brief overview of fact-checking as one of the measures to fight disinformation. It is widely accepted that disinformation is not a new phenomenon, though its problematic nature has exponentially increased its potential reach in the last few years. In fact, the diffusion of rumors dates back to as early as the invention of the printing press. Newspapers, which were one of the most significant branches of the reshaped cultural landscape catalyzed by this invention, had a lot to do with this, especially in its massified version. The initial lack of partisanship that inspired newspaper traditions like the penny press, that initially sought a certain degree of prestige and seriousness in their newsmaking, soon gave way to more sensationalist approaches and ultimately the emergence of media magnates like William Randolph Hearst, with a much more relaxed relationship with true events. Press historian Mitchell Stephens writes in this respect that in his version of the new journalism, Hearst neglected to include Pulitzer's respect for accuracy and truth. The examiner's exaggerations of minor accidents on the hated Southern Pacific Railroad foreshadowed exaggerations in later Hearst newspapers of the offenses committed by the Spanish in Cuba or of the talents of Hearst's paramour, the actress Marion Davies, which later would be parodied in Citizen Kane by Orson Welles. Distorted versions of events that actually happened or even made up stories could not be explained then exclusively by 21st century technologies. However, this posed new challenges that threaten different spheres in modern societies. The relatively recent outburst of technological possibilities that make it increasingly difficult to discern true content from fabricated ones has catalyzed a public landscape where informative disorders occupy a prominent position. Its ramifications branch out to practically every social layer, but its impact on politics is particularly noteworthy, as has been pointed out by academics and institutions in recent years, with electoral processes being at the core of some of those disrupting attempts. The never before seen amount of content that modern users are bombarded with daily are far from helpful in this respect, indeed, nor is the speed at which information and disinformation spreads almost instantly. Vasogi and others warned 5 years ago that false news was 70% more likely to be reposted than those that were truthful. Also, the exponential increase of these new technologies threatens to boost its effect with future developments of AI, which has already opened the potential abyss of not having any feasible certainty to differentiate real content from an entirely fabricated one. The first step might fight this might not be entirely technological, though, but rather a firm battle to restore the importance of truth at the core of modern society, since, as Kavak and Rosenstiel pointed out in 2007, debates between opponents arguing with false figures or purely on prejudice fails to inform. It only inflames, it takes the society nowhere. The malicious intention behind disinforming messages is central, as Genko and others have pointed out, in most academic discussions that have attempted to conceptually clarify what disinformation is and what different kinds of disinformation we may face. This is a much needed endeavor given the complex and somewhat controversial nature of the phenomenon, as Standok and others have pointed out. Many have pointed at the United States presidential elections of 2016 as an inescapable milestone to explain the rapid proliferation of information disorders. Thereafter, Barker and others affirmed that such a cycle heightened the salience of misinformation epidemic, but highlighted the contagion itself has been spreading for some time. On a similar note, Perez Soane and others defend that although this information has always existed, it is the digital media and especially the social networks that have rocketed the impact of information disorders, since it is here where fake news has found an outlet and it is a space for non-journalists to create seemingly journalistic contents and share them. Although the impactful ramifications of information disorders are, as we said before, numerous, some of the most refined, orchestrated attempts to destabilize entire nations have incontestable political intentions. In 2018, Bradshaw and Howard noted that democracies were being politically targeted by disinformation campaigns. More than 70 countries back then had already suffered verifiable campaigns of this nature. This has raised concern regarding the potential harming effects that misconceptions derived from such articulated attacks can have, especially in context of political elections, as pointed out by Thorsen. Coincidentally, Bennett and Livingston suggested that disinformation was one of the biggest threats to modern democracies nowadays. Although the US presidential election of 2016 and the Brexit referendum were two noteworthy cases, Lopez Martin and others state that the trend was not limited thereafter to Britain and the United States. Since then, they say fake news has been frequently used in numerous democratic processes, such as the Catalan independence referendum of October the 1st, 2017, the presidential elections in Brazil in 2018, the peace referendum in Colombia, or the two general elections that took place in Spain during 2019. The forced proliferation of information disorders, which frequently evolve at such speed that mechanisms to counter their harming effects, like legislation, struggle to catch up with, has led to the emergence of initiatives such as fact-checking, which Hamlers and Vandermeer have hinted as a potential solution in correcting the rising spread of misinformation that has become part of the contemporary mass communication landscape. Regardless of whether they are seen as crucial champions that battle with entrenched fanatical beliefs, as Sitan and others put it, critical interventions in the fight against the expansion of false and or misleading news, as Moreno Gil and others said, or a mere reformulation of the role traditionally assigned to journalists of double-checking unconfirmed stories, as Graves pointed out, fact-checkers play a key role along with legislation and actions aimed at fostering media literacy in the fight against disinformation, information disorders in general. Effectiveness is a key point in the notable academic interest raised by the booming fact-checking phenomenon. In this respect, even though, as Barker and others point out, evidence of journalistic fact-checking capacity to correct misperception is mixed, there are records, both from academics and journalists, that endorse the fact-checking enterprise, and not without some evidentiary rationale. Such affirmations build on the findings by authors like Goffard and others on fact-checking's capacity to improve readers' understanding of candidate issue positions and other election-relevant facts, as well as their role in protecting users from negative advertising or even discouraging politicians from making unsubstantiated claims. According to the aforementioned prominence of politics and electoral periods in the agenda of disinforming attempts to destabilize entire regions, electoral campaigns have also naturally halted the efforts of fact-checkers to debunk distorted content, as researched by authors like Baptista and others. Information disorders, to conclude with, have been systematically linked to the emergence of modern mass media, though, as it has been warned by institutions and backed up by research, the possibilities brought along by contemporary technology has multiplied its potential effect. This, along with recent temptations to succumb to relativist postulates that question the centrality of truth that governs centuries of human progress, has paved the way for a time where the quest to differentiate real content from a fabricated one has become increasingly difficult. It is easy in this scenario to surrender to what today seems impossible, knowing what is true and what is not. Though it's not as easy, engaging in a mission to recuperate the value of truth first and fight the malicious and often poignant attempts to pursue political agendas regardless of their truthfulness is where true social value lies. In this backdrop, fact-checking has surfaced as one of the key strategies to fight against these information disorders. The number of platforms striving to debunk false stories as a business model has increasingly grown since 2016, the milestone where concerns on the impact of information disorders grew to also systemic levels, and so has the research on their impact. Findings on this end may not encourage to get an undivided optimism on the fact-checkers' impact, yet their role still looks indispensable in a war that seems to need to be battled in on different fronts. Thank you very much for your attention. We're waiting for your feedback.